Hi everybody and welcome back to our weekly live stream. My name is Alicia and in this week's live lesson we're going to talk about English transition phrases. These are the little words or the little phrases that we use to connect our ideas. Native speakers use these every day, many times a day. I use these in live streams every week. These words are words that are maybe difficult to remember, but they're very important to make your speech and your writing sound smooth. So today we're going to cover quite a few, and we're going to talk about some different situations relating to how formal or how casual these words are as well. So I hope you can send lots of examples in the chat. Today, we're gonna look at what transition phrases are good for. So when should we use them? We should use them to make conversations flow smoothly, like I said, and it makes your conversation sound natural. When you connect your ideas, it sounds more natural than just sentence, sentence, sentence. It sounds kind of like a robot, right? And we use them for daily chats, for meetings, for presentations like this live stream. Very importantly, we use them in storytelling. When you tell a story about your day, it's very important to use transition phrases, okay? So final point for our introduction. These transitions are very important because they connect these ideas and they guide people between your sentences. They help people to understand how you're thinking. All right, so as we wait for people to join us live, I do want to point out this banner at the bottom of the screen. I'll come back to this in a second. It says, get 55% off. The team has a Black Friday sale, woohoo! Until, is it tomorrow? Until one day after tomorrow? I can't remember. Oh, it's right here on the screen. Sorry. Until November 28th. So this is very, very soon. You have a couple days left. The team's Black Friday sale is, I think, the best deal of the year. You should check it out. 55% off. If you want to study with us at EnglishClass101.com, you can get premium plans, premium plus plans. You can get your own teacher. You can get scripts, you can get flashcards, there's so much information. You can click the link below the video if you're watching on YouTube to find this information, this deal. Or if you're watching on Facebook, look for the link up here or to the side, okay? Let me check the chat to say hello to everybody. Let me go back to this one too. Hello on Facebook, Kun from Cambodia. What's up, Maliana? Hello, welcome on Facebook. On YouTube, hello, Chevi and Nahora, Michiko. Oh, people's usernames are appearing today instead of their display names. I wonder why. That's a weird change from YouTube. Okay, I'll try to, I hope I can read your names the same as usual. Natalie, what's up? Juan, hello. Mama, hello. Victor, Jacob, Rocky, what's up, everybody? Awesome. Okay. So I want to finish this quick introduction to transitions and then go straight into our transition points. If you haven't, please make sure to hit the like button and share this video because it helps other people find the lesson. Yay! Okay, so we're going to talk today about three main types of transition phrases, okay? We're going to talk about transition phrases which help us to add information to a sentence. We're going to practice topic-changing transitions, and we're going to talk about a transition you can use to go back to a previous point, something you said earlier, okay? So let's begin. First one is by the way. By the way. By the way. We use by the way in casual situations, everyday situations. You can use it at work. Also, it is not a rude transition phrase. We use this to add extra information or to change the subject for a short period of time. So you're talking about topic one. Oh, you have an idea quickly. You can say, by the way, to introduce your idea. So you can put a sentence in the chat with, by the way. I'll show you an example while you think of your sentence. So here's an example conversation. I loved that movie last night. Oh, by the way, did you see the new trailer for the sequel? By the way, did you see the new trailer for the sequel? You might be like, what's this, sequel? Sequel means the next movie in the series, yeah? So for like Star Wars, we had Star Wars, the originals, like A New Hope, right? The sequel was The Empire Strikes Back, like Star Wars, I guess, number 4 to number 5, right? So the sequel is number like 2 in the series, right? The first movie, and then the second movie, and then the third movie, right? A sequel means the next one in the series. Can be books, can be movies, okay? Anyway, there's a transition we're gonna talk about later. By the way, is like saying, oh, this idea that's related to this conversation popped into my head. I just had this idea about this. It's related in some way. So there's some relationship usually between this topic and this person's idea. In this case, the movie last night, and this person wants to talk about the next movie, yeah? Also, another vocabulary word here. By the way, did you see this phrase? The trailer, the trailer. The trailer means the short preview movie. Like before the movie comes to the movie theater, on TV and on the internet, you see a preview movie. What's the movie about? Who's the famous star in the movie, right? That short movie is called a trailer, yeah? Okay, so we can use by the way to do this. Let me see if you used by the way in the chat. Zach wrote, the project deadline is next week. By the way, have you seen the latest feedback from the client? Perfect, that's a great use of by the way in a professional situation. Love that. Rocky wrote, by the way, I want to know about you. Who else doesn't want to grow up anymore? I don't. Okay, I love, the sentence is fine. By the way, I want to know more about you is okay. However, we need some idea before by the way to connect to, right? So like idea A, and then by the way, connect your idea to that, okay? All right. So for people who are writing your by the, Luis, I see you, by the way, did you hear that was nominated for Best Picture? Great use of nominated. Nominated for something is a great one. But again, we need to use 2 sentences. So maybe that's a good challenge for today. Use 2 sentences or 2 ideas to connect with a transition phrase, okay? All right, let's continue. Oh, Mama has a good example. I loved, past tense maybe, I loved the soccer game. But by the way, okay, so I would say, notice here, there's no but, yeah? But and by the way have different functions, yeah? But is a topic change, right? So it's a different way to connect. But is a connecting, a conjunction, yeah? By the way is like adding information that's slightly different. So I would say for your sentence, Mama, I loved the soccer game. By the way, did you see how, I don't know how to pronounce the player's name, Mbappe, maybe, sorry, scored the goal, right? Did you see the way the players scored the goal? So I would suggest use just by the way, no but there. We don't need both of them. Okay, let's continue because we have a lot today. Okay, so let's continue to speaking of that. Speaking of that. At native speed, this sounds like speaking of that, okay? Or we sometimes drop that and just say, oh, speaking of blah, 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 okay? So speaking of is used to connect a new comment directly to the previous topic. So with this one, the 2 ideas are directly and clearly related. Yeah, speaking of blah, 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 okay? So we use this when there's a stronger connection. With this one, I would say this is a pretty strong connection, I think, between the movie and the sequel. So if we used speaking of, or speaking of that, it would be okay here. There's a strong connection here. We need to make sure when we use speaking of that, there's a clear connection between the ideas, okay? So try to connect 2 ideas in the comments if you want to challenge yourself. Ovindi has a good one on Facebook for, by the way, I saw your message. By the way, congratulations on your new job. Perfect. Perfect use. Great example, Ovindi. I love it. Okay. All right. Let's go to our examples for speaking of that. Okay. The first person says, I need to buy a new laptop. Second person says, speaking of that, there's a sale at the electronics store today. Okay? Speaking of that, where that means this topic, right? I need to buy a new laptop. So the that in speaking of that means I want to make a connection, a direct connection to this point, yeah? I need to buy a new laptop. These two are very strongly connected. So it's like this plus this. And speaking of is like saying, oh, you are speaking about that topic. I want to add something to that topic, yeah? So it's a very strong connection of two ideas between two different people, yeah? So there's a sale at the electronics store today. This person is giving the first person a good opportunity to get what they need, okay? All right, some more examples are coming in. Nahora wrote, I bought a new dress. By the way, the last one you bought, I didn't like much. Okay, so that, I don't know the context there. Could be a little rude, watch out, but good use of by the way. That one's good, okay. Let's see. Mama wrote, soccer is the greatest sport of all time. And speaking of that, I think Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi are the two greatest in soccer. Okay, I think that that's good. Usually, another point, good way of connecting your two ideas. Another point to add here, this happens between two or more speakers, yeah? We usually use this in a conversation. So I'll put 2 plus speakers. So usually we use speaking of that to add to another person's idea. So conversation starts with A and B adds that. Maybe if you're talking to yourself, like, oh, wow, I really need to, or you're explaining to someone else, like, oh, wow, I really need to go to the store today to get some milk. Oh, speaking of that, I also need to go to the electronics store today. In that situation, maybe it's natural. But we usually use this when we are talking with someone else, okay? All right. So Alexandra has a good example in a conversation, maybe, right? I enjoy studying English. Speaking of that, there's a great teacher on YouTube. Her name is Alicia. Woo! Thank you. Okay, good. Luis has a great example. Oh, the team will love this one. I love to tune into Learn English 101, or English Class 101. Speaking of that, do you know they have a 55% off for the premium subscription? Oh my Lord, so good. Okay, good example there. We love that. Yes, 55% off is true. Check the link below. Okay, but yes, I want to point out that this is usually used between 2 or more people. All right, let's go to the next one because I talked for a long time last week and I don't want to do the same thing this week. So let's go to one of my personal favorites, anyway. Anyway is so useful. I use it probably every day. Anyway is used to return to the main point or the main topic, okay? Or to move past a tangent, okay? So a tangent means like a different path in the conversation. So imagine, like a live stream, we have today's topic, right? And I'm talking. But then maybe I start to tell a story about something that happened in my life, right? It's not about the main topic. This part is a tangent, right? It's that side road in the conversation. So when we want to come back to the main part of the conversation, we say, anyway. Anyway. This is how we go back to the main road in the conversation, is with anyway. I use this, if you watch live streams every week, you have heard me say this 100%, because I like to explain something or answer someone's questions. So I go on a short side road in the live stream. And when I come back to the main topic, I say, anyway, like, let's move on, that kind of thing. So anyway is so useful. You can put it in your notes today. This is a great way to go back to the main point. Let's look at an example. This person is ending her story, or their story, all right? She says, or they say, and then we were lost for hours. And then we were lost for hours. Oh my gosh. Well, anyway, let's get back to planning the trip, okay? So in this situation, person A is telling a story about travel, probably, okay? And person B wants to go back to the original plan. We know this because they say, let's get back to, right? Let's return to our activity, planning the trip. This is the original plan or the original goal, right? They say anyway to do that, okay? But I want to note, you should be careful about how you use anyway. It can sound rude. If someone tells a story like this, they finish the story, and then we were lost for hours. Like, it sounds maybe dramatic, right? Like, oh. It sounds rude to say, anyway, let's get back to what we were doing. It sounds like you didn't listen to what they said. It sounds like you don't care. So this probably sounds rude in everyday conversation. To make sure you don't sound rude, you can add something like this. Wow, whoa, or crazy, something like that. And then say, anyway, very softly, right? So, and then we were lost for hours. Whoa, crazy. Anyway, let's get back to planning the trip. Something like that will make it softer. If you use just anyway, it sounds rude, right? So make sure you use this carefully when you talk to other people, but when you use it to talk about yourself, like I do in live streams, it's okay, right? Because I can recognize, like, oh, I talked too long about that point. I want to go back to the main part of the conversation, yeah? So when you use it for yourself, you can use it very freely. But when you use it with another person, please make sure not to be rude, okay? All right, let's see what the examples are. Zach has, I don't even want to talk about that movie anymore. So anyway, what are your plans for the weekend? So you can use this, I suppose, yeah, to talk about, to change the conversation, I suppose. Like if you're tired of talking about something, you could use anyway, I guess. Especially if you are kind of making fun of yourself. You're like, oh, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Anyway, what are you going to do for the weekend? It sounds like you're going back to an easier topic. You can use it like that. Okay. All right, so Mama has a good example. So basically, you were talking while I was talking. That's kind of rude. So anyway, let's get back to the subject. You have the right idea. Returning to the original subject. Okay. Alexandra wrote, what's the difference between anyway and by the way? Great question. Let's compare. So we have anyway to show we want to go back, right? Remember this visual, yeah? This is our side part of the conversation. And anyway is the word we use to transition back, yeah? Okay, so remember this visual, draw this visual, okay? Let's compare this to by the way, okay? So by the way is used to add extra information, right? We did not do that with anyway. With anyway, we use anyway to go back to the main conversation, not to add information, okay? Does that answer your question? All right, let me know. I'll check the chat. But for now, let's move along because I'm talking a lot. On another note, on another note. On another note is a neutral or slightly formal, okay, way to introduce a different topic, okay? On another note, okay? There's a similar phrase called on that note, okay? On another note is a way we can transition to a new topic. We use this one in meetings a lot when we want to go to the next topic in a situation and we want to sound a little kind of professional, okay? So let's look at some examples of this one. We'll talk about this. So this is a meeting situation. The first person says, we finished the budget report. And the second person says, on another note, have we scheduled the client meeting? Okay, so you can see here, this person introduces the next topic for the meeting, yeah? This person says we finished, right? So we have a key word here. The budget report is finished, great. This person is ready to go to the next topic. So they say on another note. So this note, you might be like, what is that? On another note, you can think of this as like, if you like music, maybe you can imagine the notes in music, right? Like this. Yeah, music notes, something like that. I'll put a variety here. When we play music, we go from the first to the second to the next right, to the next note. So it's like we're saying, okay, so on another note, on means the one you are playing now, right? So on this note, or on that note, right? So we're saying on another note, this means I want to go to a different note, like where the note is the topic of conversation, yeah? So the note is the topic. On another topic, yeah? So these are called notes in English. On another note, let's talk about this other topic. This is a way to say, let's go to another topic or a different topic, okay? You will also hear very commonly, on that note, which means that topic exactly, right? So on that note means this is related to the first point, right? So we often use this to end a meeting, like to end a conversation, or to kind of like conclude that topic of discussion and go to something else completely different. So for example, we finished the budget report, and the second person might say, great, well, on that note, let's finish the meeting. Something like that, which means on that note, meaning this is the last note for the meeting. If we think of the meeting or we think of the discussion like music, on this note, it's done. Let's finish on that point right there. Maybe it's helpful to think of note as meaning topic or point, yeah? So we use this to transfer or to change conversations with another, and we use it to refer to the same topic with that. So there are a couple variations here. Okay. Let's see some examples. Minnow wrote one for anyway. Oh, I really hate her. Anyway, should we take a break? Okay, that's maybe a very, very good and strong example, yeah, of a change in conversation. Good use of anyway. All right. Zach wrote, I loved the movie, but the ending was a bit predictable. On another note, are we still meeting for lunch on Saturday? Perfect. Nice one, Zach. I love that. Vindy has one for anyway. Let's go back to anyway to review. That was interesting. Anyway, we need to finish our discussion on climate change. Okay, quite, so we are moving from one conversation to another. Very, very strong change there. Okay, and one more from Mama on YouTube. We finished the exam preparation. On another note, when is the final exam? Okay, you might say, I would say in that case, by the way, when is the final exam? Because the ideas are connected, yeah? On another note, feels like there's some disconnect between the two ideas, yeah? So I would suggest that one. Okay. Dimasla, hello, on YouTube wrote, could on another hand be similar to on another hand? We don't say on another hand, we say on the other hand. I know they sound similar. So no, the answer is no. Number one, we do not say on another hand. You cannot use that. And we can say on the other hand. We use that to compare two ideas. Yeah, I don't think that's in today's lesson. But on the other hand is used to talk about usually two comparing two ideas we want to compare. Okay, Marion on Facebook has an example. We made the sales goal today. On that note, let's do the ending report and send it in. Good, 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 good. On that note, perfect use of on that note to transition between your ideas. I love it. All right, let's continue. Oh my gosh, we made it through the first section. I'm talking too much, so let's go quickly. If you missed it earlier, the team has a 55% off deal for Black Friday. Yay! Can you see me? I blend into the board here, don't I, in my black shirt? I'm here, I promise. So, Black Friday, 55% off at EnglishClass101.com. Oh my gosh. So, this is useful for basic plans, for premium plans, and for Premium Plus, and it ends November 28th, 2025. So please click the link below the video if you're watching on YouTube or above the video if you're watching on Facebook. You will find all the different details. There's a chart you can check to see the difference. What's the difference between basic and Premium Plus? What can you get? So this is an amazing chance. I think it's the best one of the year. I think this is the best one of the year. So go get all the details if you want to start, if you want more of my lessons, if you want all kinds of different study tools, you can find all the details at EnglishClass101.com. All right, let's continue to the next one because I have a lot more to cover today. If you haven't, please, please, please make sure to hit the like button and share this video so other people can find the lesson. Let's continue. Let me check the chat quickly. Louis wrote, the client just approved the new changes for the website. Great. On another note, we still have to normalize the database. Great. Nice use of on another note there. And Patrick wrote, we bought meat in the grocery store yesterday. On another note, we need to buy rice for the week. We don't have more. Good. Nice example. Nice way to transition there. All right. Let's go to the next one. That reminds me. That reminds me. At native speed, oh, that reminds me. That reminds me. This means something in the conversation caused me to remember something. That reminds me. So we use this to introduce something you just remembered that is related to the conversation, okay? It's related to the conversation somehow, okay? Let's look at the example. Please remember this one. This is a very, very common one. Write this one in your notes. You will hear it probably every day, okay? First person says, I saw a great cafe yesterday. Second person says, oh, that reminds me, I need to return your book. And you might think, how are these related? What is the relationship between these two things? That is the fun of that reminds me. Sometimes we don't know exactly what caused the other person to remember something. This person's just comments like, oh, I saw a great cafe yesterday. And for some reason, that causes this person to remember, oh, that reminds me, or I just remembered, I need to return your book. Like maybe the last time they met in a cafe and the person person A gave person B a book, for example. They think, oh my gosh, that reminds me. I have to do this, yeah? So the fun of that reminds me is sometimes the connection is not clear to the first person. And oftentimes, like in this situation, this person goes, that reminds me, I need to return your book. Oftentimes, the first person will go, why does that remind you? Or like, what brought that up? Meaning, what caused you to remember that? Yeah? Asking about this connection. So that reminds me can sometimes be a little bit funny because we don't understand the connections in the other person's brain. So that reminds me is a very, very good one to use. Okay. All right. Let me see the chat. Zach has another good one. The manager says, so we need to focus on improving our customer onboarding process. And the employee says, that reminds me, Sarah from the support team sent some great feedback about that last week. Great, great, very clear example there. Nice one, Zach. Let's continue to the next one because I am already late. Okay, before I forget, another very common one, especially for super, super busy people or if you have a bad memory. This one is for you. This is a phrase we use to introduce something important, an important thing you need to share. The other person needs to know this thing. So an important point you might otherwise forget. You might forget it in the future. Like you're having a really busy day, but you need to give someone key information. You can say, before I forget, blah, blah, blah. Okay? So let's look at the example of this. This person says, oh, thanks for the update, like your manager maybe. Oh, before I forget, please send the meeting agenda by noon. Please send the meeting agenda by noon. So you can see this comes before a regular request. Please send the meeting agenda by noon. But this person thinks, oh, I might forget this, right? I'm having a busy day. So before I forget, this before I forget means before I forget to tell you or before I forget to ask you, okay? Before I forget about this, like I'm thinking about it right now, let me tell you right now. Right? Before I forget about it, yeah? So this is great to use on a busy day. Before I forget sounds like, I have a lot happening right now. Okay, let me check the chat. Nahora wrote, I have to go to the library. Oh, let's go back to the last one. I have to go to the library. That reminds me, I didn't have lunch. Oh no. Okay, good example, okay? Zach's got a fast example. Before I forget, the landlord said he's stopping by tomorrow morning to fix the faucet. Good one, good examples, everybody so far. Okay, I'm gonna move along, but I will continue to check the chat. So if you're thinking of an example sentence, keep going. Challenge yourself, okay? Let's talk about as for. As for, you might be like, what is that? This is two very short words that we usually use to connect information alone. So you're like, what is that? As for, we use to introduce a topic. So it introduces a specific topic, like a person you want to talk about. There's an item, like a product, something you want to make a comment about, something you want to give an update on. We use it just to introduce that topic, okay? So let's take a look at our example here. This is in probably a meeting situation. Person A asks, what about the schedule? What about the schedule? And then person B says, well, as for the schedule, we'll finalize it on Friday. Finalize it means to make a final decision, about something. This is a verb, yeah? So as for, and then after that, we have a noun, yeah? So the basic grammar pattern we're going to use here, as for noun, and noun can be a person, it can be an item like this, like the schedule, usually a person or an item, like you're discussing something that is going to happen, or you're discussing something that happened in the past. I'd say sometimes maybe we use places. If you're, for example, if you're planning a trip, like as for Shanghai, we're going to do X, Y, and Z in that location. Also, another thing to note, as for tends to sound a bit more formal. Like, we don't use as for very much in our daily, like, friendly, casual conversations. As for is like a kind of a little more formal, not super polite, but a little more formal way to introduce a topic of conversation. As for, okay? Let me check your examples. I see many coming in. Great job, everybody. Let's take a look. You have, oh my gosh, who haven't I read from in a minute? Patrick, tomorrow is Maria's birthday. That reminds me, I have to buy her a gift. Oh, before I forget, I see what you've done. Okay. Let me help you make it nice. Tomorrow is Maria's birthday. Oh, that reminds me, I have to buy her a gift before I forget. Okay, you could do that. Or I have to buy her a gift. I have to do this before I forget. I would combine them before I forget because I'm very busy, yeah? So to make your sentence nice, I would combine them. Tomorrow's Maria's birthday. Oh, that reminds me. I have to buy her a gift before I forget. You could use it like that. Yeah, nice way to combine those, Patrick. Very nice, very nice. Okay. Victor wrote, I have been in your class. Oh, I have been in your class yesterday. Use past tense. Have been is used for continuing actions. Yeah, Victor? I was in your class yesterday, right? Yesterday is finished. That reminds me, I need to study grammar, yeah? So maybe if it's this class, I watched your class yesterday. That reminds me, I need to study grammar. Maybe that's what you want to say. Okay. Zach wrote, we've booked the flights to Paris. As for the hotel, we're still looking for a good deal. Good, okay. Luis wrote, where is Lee? As for Lee, he went back to China for holidays. Okay, we can say that. For me, that's a situation, you've used it correctly. It does tend to sound kind of more formal, like you're having a meeting about it. So you've used it correctly to introduce a person. But again, we typically don't use as for to introduce people in a conversation, like a daily conversation. In that situation, I'd probably say, where's Lee? Oh, Lee? He went back to China for the holidays. Something like that, where we don't have as for, because we already know kind of the topic of conversation. So it's less common in daily conversations. Oh my gosh, I have to finish up. Okay. Moving on, perfect. That's very funny. Moving on is a way to say going to the next topic. That was perfect because I was on a tangent. I could have said anyway. Moving on is a neutral way to mean you are going to the next topic, right? You are leaving, you're finishing the topic now and going to the next topic. moving on, moving on. I love to use this one. Let's look at the example. Moving on, let's examine our sales figures for Q3. Q3 means quarter. So the third quarter of the year, the 3-month quarter of the year. So moving on, meaning let's go to the next topic of the conversation, which is sales figures. Sales figures, this means numbers. This is a fancy, special, polite way to say numbers for the year, okay? Oh my gosh, okay, I'm gonna go to, let's see, how much do we have left? While we're on the subject, oh my gosh. Is there 2 left? Okay, good. Let's talk about the last 2 really quickly then, because I'm out of time. While we're on the subject, this one's a longer one. While we're on the subject, this is used to add a related point, like by the way, yeah? Like think of this as by the way, because it's related to the subject. It's just a different way to say by the way. So let's look at these examples quickly. First person says, we've discussed the venue. The venue means the place to have an event. We've discussed the venue. The second person says, while we're on the subject, should we confirm the guest list? So while we're on the subject, where the subject means the previous topic. So by the way, blah, 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 right? I want to talk more about that in a related sense, okay? And then, sorry, I have to go to the next one because I am very late. So let's talk about the last one. Incidentally, maybe the most formal one on this list. This is a way to say, by the way. By the way, we often use it in writing and in very polite situations. So you'll hear this in maybe the news, I suppose. So let's look at a last example here. The report is complete. Incidentally, the client asked for an extra copy. By the way, the client asked for an extra copy. They mean the same thing, but incidentally sounds more formal. All right, I gotta finish. Time's up for me. So that means it's up for all of us. 55% off if you missed it before. This is an amazing chance to start studying with EnglishClass101.com. Check the link right here, right now, because the lesson is finishing. Go crazy, get your favorite deal by November 28th. I wish you all the best. I have to finish now. Thank you everybody who joined me. These are some tips I will show you very quickly for the end of the lesson. I will, of course, be back next week, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is New York City time. Set a notification for that. Thanks for your great example sentences. Oh my gosh, I didn't get through all of the slides today, but we covered the main points. Next week, I think the topic for next week actually has changed. We're going to talk about something different. So please pretend you didn't see this. We're going to talk, I think we have something that got last minute changed for next week. But I think you will be able to find it on the YouTube live stream page. Check that, or on the Facebook live stream preparation page. So please check that. Sorry to finish very quickly today, but I hope you have a great day, have a great week, and have a great weekend. Go crazy with the Black Friday sale. Thanks for liking and sharing the video and for sending your messages in the comments. See you next time. Bye.